The architecture of execution. Enterprise resource planning is the central nervous system of any global organization. When it functions correctly, it enables scale, enforces governance, and secures market dominance. When it fails, it paralyzes the entire corporate structure. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are dissecting enterprise technology failures and laying out the rigorous operational blueprint required for actual success. This is not a theoretical discussion. It is a forensic breakdown of why large-scale transformations collapse under their own weight. We will examine how executive leadership must architect their operational readiness long before a single line of code is deployed by a vendor. The transition from legacy infrastructure to a digital core demands absolute precision. Let us look closely at this reality. We are going to dismantle the marketing hype, examine the root causes of catastrophic corporate failures, and construct a chronological framework that protects business continuity.
Structured roadmap here. Here is our roadmap for today's analysis. First, the high-stakes hook and executive overview. Second, a detailed operational postmortem. Third, the human blueprint. And finally, our chronological action plan and guardrails. We will move methodically through each.
High-stakes hook and executive overview Section 1. High-stakes hook and executive overview. We begin by looking at the stark reality behind the vendor hype. The Hershey catastrophe. We start at the absolute bleeding edge of enterprise technology failures. Vendor marketing consistently promises seamless integration and instant return on investment, but the reality of enterprise software deployment on the ground is vastly different. The stakes here are not merely budget overruns. The stakes are market share, stock valuation, and operational survival. Consider the sheer scale of this disruption. In 1999, Hershey Foods Corporation suffered a catastrophic failure resulting in $100 million of unprocessed orders. The timing was disastrous. The mechanics of the failure. Hershey attempted to overhaul its fragmented IT environment by implementing 3 powerful systems simultaneously. Driven by the pressure of the impending Y2K bug, executive leadership compressed a highly complex program into an unrealistic 30-month timeline. They rushed the testing phases and chose to go live in July 1999. This was directly ahead of their peak Halloween and Christmas seasons. Order processing slowed to a crawl, distribution channels completely collapsed. The company reported a 19% drop in quarterly profits, and its stock price fell 8%. This was a foreseeable failure born of compromised testing and fundamentally flawed scheduling. The Nike disruption. In 2001, Nike invested $400 million into a new ERP and supply chain system. The system was intended to optimize demand planning across their global footprint. Instead, it generated a massive supply chain disaster. The price of misalignment. The new architecture was simply not compatible with Nike's legacy systems. The integration was severely rushed, and the software contained embedded bugs that disrupted the distribution of their highly profitable Air Jordan footwear. The financial impact was immediate and brutal. Nike suffered a $100 million loss in revenue. They faced multiple lawsuits due to unfulfilled orders, lost critical market share to competitors, and witnessed a sharp decline in their stock value. Ultimately, Nike had to spend an additional $500 million just to rectify the problems and eventually transition to a more robust SAP system. The total cost of poor planning and technical misalignment approached $1 billion.
The Lidl abandonment. Moving to the European retail sector, we observed the German grocery chain Lidl. In 2011, Lidl partnered with SAP to modernize its inventory management system across its massive network of stores. This project consumed 7 years of development effort and over $580 million in capital expenditure, the over-customization trap. The implementation stalled and eventually collapsed entirely because Lidl refused to adapt its unique, highly specific record-keeping methods to the standardized processes of the SAP software. They attempted to heavily customize the core ERP to fit their existing rigid workflows. This over-customization led to insurmountable technical complications and system instability. After 7 years of sunk costs, Lidl completely abandoned the SAP system and reverted to its original in-house legacy architecture. This brilliantly illustrates the danger of forcing modern technology to conform to outdated legacy processes.
The statistical reality. The crucial takeaway here is the vast disconnect between vendor promises and execution reality. According to Gartner research, 75% of ERP projects failed to meet their objectives. McKinsey data reinforces this grim picture, stating that more than 70% of all digital transformations fail to achieve their desired return on investment. Vendor hype versus technical debt. Vendor marketing highlights clean interfaces, AI-driven insights, and agile operations.
Real-world technical debt involves decades of customized, fragmented IT infrastructure. Large organizations operate with disparate tools and standalone databases. This leads to profound data silos and inconsistent financial reporting. Migrating from these deeply embedded legacy systems to a standardized digital platform requires exhaustive data conversion and process alignment. It is never a simple software installation. It is a fundamental rewiring of the corporate anatomy.
Process before platform. This brings us to a foundational law of enterprise architecture. Automating a broken workflow merely scales and accelerates an organization's existing inefficiencies. If a company implements an ERP system without radically redesigning its core business processes first, it will simply embed outdated, convoluted workflows into the new digital infrastructure. This completely negates the potential benefits of the technology. The objective is not to digitize the past, but to architect the future. Business process re-engineering must precede platform deployment. You must mandate a process-first approach, where workflows are optimized, standardized, and cleansed of redundancies long before any software is configured. Detailed Operational Postmortem Section 2. Detailed Operational Postmortem. Let us shift from the high-level financial wreckage and analyze the actual ground-level mechanics of these execution failures. The anatomy of the Hershey collapse. Understanding the mechanics of failure is the only reliable method for engineering success. Returning to the Hershey case, we must analyze their specific execution failures on the ground level. A seasoned implementation team would never have signed off on their timeline. Hershey compressed a massive organizational transformation into 30 months. More critically, they skipped fundamental testing phases to meet that artificial deadline. In a standard implementation, testing involves a conference room pilot, systems integration testing, and user acceptance testing. Each phase is iterative. Gaps are identified, documented, and corrected. Hershey prioritized speed over operational certainty, leaving major system defects hidden until go live. Integration points between modules failed. Data did not flow properly between warehousing and order management. Finally, they executed a peak season cutover. Project scheduling is a massive strategic decision. Going live during the busiest operational window meant the company faced maximum market demand with minimum system stability. Testing is a critical risk reduction tool. It is never a bureaucratic checkbox.
Systemic execution pitfalls across all analyzed corporate failures. Consistent root causes emerge again and again. Poor planning, this is universally present. Organizations fail to set clear, measurable goals aligned with business strategy. This inevitably leads to scope creep, where the project expands uncontrollably and drains capital. Inadequate training, this leaves end users paralyzed. Employees who are unfamiliar with the new system interface will create data entry errors, resulting in massive productivity losses on day one. Excessive customization, this is a fatal flaw in enterprise architecture. Companies often attempt to alter the ERP code to fit legacy habits rather than adopting industry best practices. This creates long-term maintenance nightmares and makes future upgrades nearly impossible. Poor data migration, this is the silent killer of transformations. The principle of garbage in, garbage out is absolute. Failing to cleanse, standardize, and validate legacy data before transferring it into the new environment ensures that the new system will generate immediate reporting inaccuracies.
The Strategic Enabler Business Process Reengineering, or BPR, is the strategic enabler for enterprise technology. It is a rigorous management strategy focused on radically redesigning core business processes to achieve substantial improvements in productivity, cycle times, and quality. Unlike traditional management approaches that emphasize siloed functional departments, BPR advocates for a process-centric view. Workflows are designed to maximize value delivery across the entire organization. The synergy between BPR and ERP is absolutely crucial. BPR ensures that the new systems are designed to support optimized, lean workflows. Organizations must map their existing workflows, identify operational pain points, and deconstruct redundant activities before the software vendor even enters the room. This operational alignment minimizes business disruptions, drastically enhances user adoption, and ensures the digital architecture directly supports strategic business outcomes.
The Human Blueprint, Section 3. The Human Blueprint. We now pivot from technical architecture to the psychological reality of adoption. Protecting identity capital. Successful change management efforts are rarely won or lost on technology alone. They succeed or stall based entirely on how well employees understand what is changing and how it affects their daily execution. We must position user resistance not as an inherent cultural flaw, but as an acute information problem that executive leadership has failed to solve.
For executives, the primary risk is whether the business can absorb transformation without losing operational momentum. Change in the modern enterprise is no longer episodic. It is constant, layered, and increasingly driven by artificial intelligence. New tools roll out before teams have fully adopted the previous ones. This creates profound change fatigue across the workforce. The threat to identity capital. Most employees view significant business change through a deeply personal lens. They possess what we call identity capital. This is based on their mastery of current legacy systems and their established value to the organization. When an ERP system alters their daily responsibilities without clear context, that identity capital is threatened. Unclear communication and shifting processes create deep uncertainty, and uncertainty immediately slows adoption. Executives must protect this identity capital by providing precise, role-specific impacts. Failing to do so guarantees insurmountable resistance at the operational level.
Comparative change methodologies. To manage this human element systematically, enterprise implementation teams rely on established frameworks. Let us compare the three most prominent methodologies in the space. ProZ DADCAR model. This centers on individual transitions. It structures readiness around 5 individual building blocks: awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. It acts primarily as an individual diagnostic tool to see where an employee is stalling. Cotter's 8-step model. This prescribes a sequential leadership process. It excels at the front end of transformation by creating organizational urgency and building guiding executive coalitions to drive the mandate forward. IMI Worldwide's AIM framework. This approach is unique. It treats implementation as an ongoing behavioral system rather than a phased IT project. AIM focuses heavily on organizational systems, demanding active sponsor accountability and specific cascade design across all middle management layers. Crucially, it treats resistance as a diagnostic signal about the system itself, requiring leaders to respond strategically rather than just broadcasting more generic corporate communication.
The information architecture. To effectively mitigate user resistance, leadership must deploy a layered, empathy-based communications plan. This plan must connect operational shifts directly to tangible wins for the end user. Transparent communication. This is non-negotiable. Vague executive updates are entirely insufficient. Information must be tailored based on exact roles and responsibilities. Role-specific FAQs. Delivering these ensures the employee understands exactly how their daily tasks, screen inputs, and reporting structures will change on day one. Change champions. The deployment of these individuals is critical. These are trained, embedded personnel within specific business units who reinforce new behaviors and drive localized adoption from the inside out. Feedback loops. Bidirectional communication must be established. Utilizing real-time analytics and pulse surveys allows leadership to identify bottlenecks and operational confusion before they escalate into entrenched adoption resistance.
Chronological Action Plan and Guardrails. Section 4. Chronological Action Plan and Guardrails. We move now to tactical, executive-level execution.
The burden of legacy infrastructure. High-level strategy is meaningless without a rigid, unforgiving framework for deployment. To build a tactical plan, we must face operational reality on the ground. We completely reject the catastrophic Big Bang rollout method that destroyed value at Hershey and Nike. We mandate a phased, highly methodical approach designed to guarantee operational stability. Large enterprises operate with deeply fragmented IT infrastructures. They rely on customized, siloed applications that have been embedded in their business functions for decades. Migrating from these legacy systems to a standardized digital platform is the primary technical hurdle of any project. It requires extensive data conversion and complex interoperability measures. The transition is heavily complicated when different global divisions operate on entirely disparate legacy systems. Executive leadership must recognize that this migration is a high-risk extraction process. Data must be sanitized, legacy codes must be mapped to modern standards, the organization's technical debt must be paid in full before the new architecture can function effectively. Securing baseline core integrity. The absolute, non-negotiable priority is securing Phase A stability. Before any advanced vendor optimizations or artificial intelligence modules are even considered, baseline core integrity must be established and proven. Step 1. Process optimization. This is achieved through business process reengineering. Redundant workflows are mapped and eliminated without exception. Step 2.
Data cleansing and validation. Financial ledgers must be immaculate. Inventory records must be mathematically perfect. Migrating dirty data guarantees immediate reporting failure and halts business operations. Step 3. Minimum viable go live. This means deploying only the absolute core functionalities required to keep the business running. Procure to pay, order to cash, record to report. This is basic blocking and tackling. You establish a rock-solid, stable foundation before attempting to scale functional complexity across the enterprise.
Non-negotiable guardrails to execute this minimum viable implementation without halting operations. Specific guardrails are required. Absolute executive buy-in. Senior management must champion the project, allocate dedicated capital and human resources, and enforce strict discipline across all functional departments. Realistic project timelines. Schedules must reflect the actual complexity of data migration and the absolute necessity of comprehensive testing. This includes severe stress testing under simulated peak loads. Limit customizations. Organizations must adapt their internal processes to standard system functionalities. Customization should be reserved only for areas that provide genuine, measurable competitive differentiation in the market. Phased deployment. The system must be introduced incrementally. Roll it out by specific module or geographic region. This allows for iterative stabilization and localized issue resolution before you attempt an enterprise-wide scale.
The two-tier architecture. Leading global organizations now operate on a hybrid, two-tier ERP model. The doctrine here is simple but highly effective. Standardize the core, customize the edge. The primary global ERP core is locked down. It is highly standardized to ensure massive scale, rigid financial governance, and systemic stability. Customizations at this core level are strictly prohibited. This reduces long-term maintenance costs and heavily simplifies future vendor upgrade cycles. The second tier operates at the operational edges of the business. This tier enables speed, localized flexibility, and rapid innovation for smaller subsidiaries or newly acquired entities. By minimizing core alterations and allowing targeted flexibility at the perimeter, enterprises drastically reduce implementation risk while maintaining critical business agility.
The unyielding truth. We arrive at this unyielding truth regarding enterprise execution. Implementing an ERP system without a robust process reengineering strategy often results in deep inefficiencies, as outdated workflows may be permanently embedded into the new system. Technology is merely an amplifier. It possesses no inherent intelligence to fix a fundamentally flawed operational model. If your procurement process is convoluted on paper, the ERP will execute that convolution at light speed. If your inventory management lacks physical discipline, the software will perfectly and efficiently automate your stockouts. You must enforce the strict discipline of process optimization before you surrender control to the digital platform.
The final assessment. This concludes our operational postmortem and blueprint strategy. The vendor marketing engine will continue to promise frictionless overnight transformation, but you are now armed with the forensic reality of implementation mechanics. The financial wreckage of Hershey, Nike, and Lidl proves that capital alone cannot purchase digital readiness. Success requires immense operational discipline, exhaustive data hygiene, and the relentless protection of your human capital through structural, empathetic change management. I leave you with this final assessment to take back to your teams. Review your current implementation roadmaps. Look closely at the data migration plans and the process mapping documentation. Is your organization truly ready to secure Phase A stability, or are you just spending hundreds of millions of dollars preparing to automate your broken workflows?